Good afternoon, everybody. Let's see if my training worked. Oh, ta-da. Okay. My name is Katie Diesl. I'm the Director of Finance for the Ag Division at Grimmway Farms. And what we're going to talk about today is how we found a way to utilize IIoT technology and bring it together with our EAM solution to solve a few different issues that we were facing as a company. So, walking around the last couple days, it's been interesting to see how much focus is on manufacturing. Obviously, I'm a little bit of an anomaly here, but so when people think ag company and farming, you think, you know, pitchforks, darts, lots of manual labor, which it is, but ag is really moving away from this model a lot, and it's moving towards something called precision farming. How many of you have heard of that term? Okay, well, I can go quickly through this slide then. So precision farming is anything from like GPS guidance systems, sensors on spray rigs to control dispersion of like herbicides, pesticides, row control sensors on planters to make those beautiful straight rows, and so that your tractor driver doesn't drive into a ditch, which never happens. Yield monitoring with drones and really like plant populations, right? So there's lots of ways we're starting to use this technology and apply it in agriculture. What we're going to talk about today is really telematics and fleet utilization. So, yeah, so we're going to focus on a little bit different stuff. And some of the challenges that come with not being in a plant environment, not being in a controlled space. So, all right, let me tell you really briefly the tap dance about Grimmway Farms. So this is a family-owned company. We were started in the late 60s by two brothers, Rod and Bob Grimm. About 4 decades later, it's the largest organic grower in the United States, and we're the largest carrot producer in the world. We have anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 employees at any given time. And on the veg side, we grow about 60 different commodities, anything from broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce. So we cover lots of different vegetables. Yeah, all the things that you don't have to be guilty. You don't have to feel guilty about anything we make. So it's always kind of nice. So these are some of our products. You may have seen us in the stores. So our Cal Organic label and Grimmway Farms label, the baby carrots. How many of you had baby carrots? Super Bowl at least, right? To not feel guilty. So anyway, we're in most of the stores you're going to shop at. We're in Costco, Winn-Dixie, Publix, Kroger, Vons, Safeway. It's kind of hard to avoid our product, so it's a good thing for us. All right, so these are actual pictures of us. Some of the pictures later are not us, but okay, so let's talk a little bit about our business and what's driving us and what is critical for us as a company. So environmental sustainability is important to really all farmers who want to see their ground be productive for generations, and we're based in California in the Central Valley, and we have some of the most productive farmland in the nation, and we are always challenging ourselves to find better ways to utilize it, to really minimize resources. Obviously, California's had a water problem for the last few years. We also have labor challenges. So really what we're always seeking are ways that technology can help us be smarter in what we do. We operate year-round. So what you're seeing here, you've got our tractor. This is our harvester. Actually, the trailer pulls alongside, and then that's one of our facilities on the far. Okay, so what are our overall maintenance goals? Number one, pretty obvious, maintain plants and equipment in a high state of reliability. Improve asset performance through innovation, which, like I mentioned, we have an R&D division both on our farming side and in our facilities, really seeking better ways to reduce loss, product loss, and improve yield. And then to manage all of our maintenance cost programs in a cost-effective fashion, maintain safe working conditions for all of our employees, and really maximize the life cycle of our assets with sustainability in mind. And so, you know, we're talking about not a huge population, but probably over 100 maintenance techs that we're dealing with, and I'd say about 50 just on the farming side. And on the farming side, one of the challenges is they're mobile, so they're traveling to the assets. And so where this began for us was in our facilities, we realized we had kind of outgrown manual maintenance tracking, right? So people were using Excel-based tools or whatever. So we did an RFP we looked at an assortment of vendors who shall all remain nameless, but we did pick one. We didn't even meet Kevin, but I would say we picked it because of Kevin. But when we started, we did one facility and it was 17 users, and now we've scaled up to over 500 users on EAM. And the reasons that we selected the solution were we felt it had scalability for our organization, that it would grow with us over time, which it has, obviously, if we're supporting that volume of users now. Configurability, or our ability to customize it to suit our needs, and also visibility, that it was easy enough for us to see how assets were performing and what activities were occurring. So, we're on that perpetual quest to move from reactive maintenance to preventative to predictive. So all of these technologies sort of play into that. So even though many years ago we purchased an asset management application, it doesn't fix everything, unfortunately, even though that's what they tell you when you're shopping, right? So we still had some efficiency issues, and where that really came into play is what we're going to talk about today. And the reason that we did the facilities first is they were a much easier elephant to eat for us. And on the farming side, the challenge is really that I am a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but we sometimes have a hard time telling you exactly where all of our assets are. And I'm sure I'm the only one that has that problem. Just make me feel good. Tell me someone else has them. So what we were really interested in knowing is equipment utilization. How many hours are our tractors running? Where are they? Are you really using it? Do you need 10 tractors in your fleet? Or can you share with your friend over here, right? It's basic like kindergarten playground stuff in some ways. So previously managing this information was really challenging because it was asking a ranch manager, hey, pull meter readings on your equipment, feed that back to a central, then we'll tell you when you need to PM it. It just wasn't elegant by any stretch of the imagination, right? So this is the one that is not us, okay? We did not do this to our tractor. But the way that we had to go about doing it was we had mobile techs, and they would essentially drive around, talk to the harvest crews or talk to and try to find equipment. If they found equipment that it was kind of close to needing to be serviced, they would do it, which led to PMing too early or PMing too late. And that mechanic's binder was really, or his journal was really like his Bible, but no one else had access to the data. So we obviously had an assortment of challenges related to that. And really that drove MRO spend because we were over PMing most likely, and you might not even have had the right parts on the when you got there. So what we decided to do was we started having conversations with vendors, and I think this was as much the technology had to catch up to where we needed to go. So about 2 years ago, we partnered with Trimble, and they had some devices that we could install on our powered assets, and it would collect the data for us, and it would transmit it. So this is not, this is not super fancy. I know you guys, I say this, and I'm just an econ person. I'm in numbers, so the high-tech stuff is not but so this is actually a really simple implementation. It's a really simple solution, but it accomplishes some powerful data for us. So you've got the device. Actually, the data goes to Trimble's cloud. Trimble pushes the data back down to us. We consume the data. We push it into EAM. PMs magically generate, and then we get the work done. So let me kind of show you a little bit about what we're using and what we collect. Okay, so this is the device we install on our assets, and we have a couple different models depending on the engine configuration. So there's two antennas, one's a GPS and one's a cell antenna. They power on and they transmit data at whatever frequency we set. It identifies X and Y coordinates, it captures miles and minutes, and the way we have them installed, they're only collecting data when the asset is like actively engaged and driving. We want to know productive time. And that is one of the challenges that we ran into, is it took a little bit of tinkering back and forth with the vendor to make sure that we installed it properly, because we did, in first launch, come back with, like, I don't think that tractor's running 24 hours a day. Like, it's a lot of acres, but I just don't think they're that busy. So we have these installed on over 700 assets currently, and it did take a good amount of partnership with the vendor back and forth until we got the file format right and like meaningful, clean data coming into our system. So the way we first went about doing it is it was an upload into EAM with a utility that they provide. And it was essentially 1 record a day. And I know that's not a lot, and IoT is all about big data. But for us, we were going from a challenge of 1 record a month, 1 meter reading per asset a month that we couldn't pull off, to 1 a day. So that was a good step forward for us. And at this point now, we've also integrated our shapefile with Trimble. And so we get 1 record per asset per block, which is about an 80-acre footprint per day. So we know every block, therefore we know every ranch manager responsibility, how long it was running, and what the distance it covered was. So, and we also have moved away from any manual involvement in the process to now that data is just consumed by service and pushed into EAM. All right, this is just the where do you put the data? So we put it in a few different places in our application. On the asset, we show which Trimble model it's linked to so that we can maintain the tracker as well. We feed the GPS coordinates in. You feed the information in on the meter history screen, which is pretty straightforward. And then we have been able to transition our PM schedules away from time-based schedules to meter-based, which doesn't sound like anything crazy, but I think it's really much more in line with the manufacturer's recommendations. And time is what you do when you don't have better data, right? When you don't actually know when it needs to happen. So fortunately, we've been able to transition a lot of our stuff to that model and hope to do even more. Okay, so the good stuff, right? What you actually care about. The benefits. Okay, let's see. They were pretty good, actually, all things considered. All right, so we blew through the checklist benefits. So what have we gained from this? Well, I'd say the simplest is objectivity. There's some honesty in data that a machine collects once you know that you can rely on it. But the bottom line is improved MRO planning. So our PMs generate when they actually need to generate. We give them a little bit of buffer, but our techs are better able to manage their workload and also manage the parts needed and load their truck up properly so they're not having to make additional stops to buy supplies along the way. We are also getting much better feedback because instead of having to extract from some mechanic's journal, we've got checklists, they've got an iPad, we're collecting data mobily, and it's much richer content that we get from them. And then also we've got a future safe process. We understand where our equipment is, we have visibility, we understand utilization, which has been really huge for us because what happens when you're in farming is if you don't get that seed in the ground the day that it needs to go in, it doesn't come out of the ground when you need to harvest it. And based on our volume, we're talking about almost 100 acres that have to be planted every single day. And it's not like we can run an extra shift. We can't let's plant 200 acres tomorrow and just ask them to grow faster. Someday I'm sure we will, right? I guess probably Amazon will figure that out and grow them indoors. But yeah, so it really is critical. And if you don't have the equipment where it needs to be to adhere to that planting schedule, you have to rent equipment, right? Or you have to do something. And we're covering from Washington to California, Colorado, and Florida seasonally. And it costs sometimes, $10,000 or $15,000 to move a harvester. So you need to kind of know where it should be. And so anyway, it's huge information for us, really, and it doesn't have to be complicated to have a lot of power. So I went through that pretty fast, but future opportunities, we're actually even going to do more of it. So one of the things that I've been trying, so if anyone has any tips for me, what we still have to tackle are how we can get trackers on non-powered assets, right? It's a lot easier when we've got a power source and we can wire it in, but what we ultimately have to get to is we want we want to know how much our tractor's working, and we want to know who he's playing with. What's the plow? What's the implement? What's the disc that's attached to him? And so, we're still working with vendors to try and figure out what the most reliable and cost-effective solution is on that. Also, we do have a pretty significant rental fleet. because, we haven't found all of our equipment yet. And so there's the conversation of putting our own tracking devices on it so that we can bring that data into our system. And a lot of times we're doing long-term rentals where we're responsible for maintenance. So that's on the list. And then obviously transitioning from more instead of interval-based, moving to meter-based, and then we've got lots of SCADA integrations within the facility, but continuing to bring that data in to our EAM solution. And then we're just doing more mobile and digitalization of information as we turn into a big kid company. So that's kind of Grimmway Farms' experience with IoT. I'll say one thing before I go, because I will admit that even before this, we're like, IoT, ROI, EAM, which ROI are you looking for? Is it the ROI on your IoT, or the ROI on your EAM, or the ROI on your asset? I actually think what we found was a pretty quick ROI on the IoT. We've gotten a greater ROI on our EAM, and we've really eliminated the burden of, we got to get rid of people doing jobs they don't want to do, and when they don't want to do it, they don't do it very well. So the computers are a little bit better at that. So anyway, that's our take on it. Thank you.